giving you a voice.
Making it loud our own way.
Welcome to the fun.
Competing at high levels in FTC will be our third topic. Let's get down to business. What qualities make up a good team?
All right. I think what I've noticed is there's two main things that I've noticed on a lot of good teams. I think the first one is just being friends with the people you're on a team with and having a good connection with them, even outside of robotics. I think that's really important to knowing each other and just being able to work super well together. And I think the other thing that's really important is just being passionate and really loving it. Because if you enjoy what you're doing, on really all aspects of FIRST, then you're going to want to keep working hard and keep improving it. And I think that's what's really important.
I think there are a multitude of different really successful teams within FIRST, and there's no one recipe for success. But I think the thing that we see across all of the high-level teams is complete dedication to this program. And that's going back to what Rachel was saying. You have to love what you're doing. You really, really have to be passionate and excited about these projects so that you're wanting to put every second of your life into it.
I definitely agree with both Rachel and Katie. It's really important to have good friends on your team because you're spending long hours with them working on the robot together. And it's definitely important to have that dedication and passion for it, because otherwise it's not going to translate well when you have judges, and it just won't probably work out for you in the long run if you're not committed to robotics or to the passion for STEM.
Yeah. I would add one more thing to qualities of a good team. I think that having a team that is able to be sustainable is so important. And I don't think the newer teams recognize that as much, because many times if the team is in the first 2 or 3 years, most of the time there wouldn't have been anyone who's aged out yet. But especially in the older teams, and I know definitely in Schrodinger's cat, which is down in the 3000s. So I know you've definitely had multiple iterations of new people coming onto the team. It's definitely important to make sure that knowledge is passed down and that there aren't specific cliques in the group. Because if you are in such a good friendship with some people that you can't really let the new members in onto the team, then your team dynamic and ultimately your team performance that season is going to suffer because of it.
That's a really good point.
That is a really good point. Talking more specifically on my team, our team isn't going to continue next year. The Green Girls itself will end, but another way that you can bring girls on is we start new all-girls teams every single year, and we help them in order to pass on our knowledge. And that's what we'll be doing a lot of this year, is making sure that the knowledge that we have in FTC doesn't end with us. So we'll be coming back to mentor. And we also have a 501c3 that we're raising money to fund girls with as well. All right, so the next question is, how can everyone on the team stay organized and meet their deadlines?
You learn by failure.
It's definitely true.
It's definitely a challenge, and every single tournament, it begins with a late night for my team as we're frantically trying to get everything finished. So it's definitely a challenge to get everything done within a time limit, but it's something that you just have to learn how to make happen, learn how long each part of the season takes, and really figure out how to budget your time accordingly. But I think that's different for every team.
Yeah, I would say, if you're having problems with time management, set yourself a goal that would be a week ahead of where you would usually be. So what's usually going to happen is that you probably won't meet that 1 week or 2 week ahead goal. But then if you're a few days behind that, you still won't be scrambling as much as you would if you sort of continued on. Because I know a problem with my team in the past is we'll set up a list. We need to have this and this and this and this done before a certain qualifier. And if we don't set enough time for mistakes or realistic and say we can't get all of this done by the time of our qualifier, it's going to be 4:30 a.m. The day of, and we're still going to be scrambling to get our engineering notebook finished and wire up the robot and make sure the autonomous is working correctly.
That's a good point. Something else my team does is that we just adopted this last year, but we started to work like an agile process. So now we have like a backlog where we write down all of our tasks, almost all of them throughout the season, and then we like start assigning them each week into sprints so that we are more like accountable for what we need to get done. And we have stand-ups and like weekly check-ins to make sure that we're meeting everything on the sprint.
Something along those same lines that my team does is we have a giant whiteboard on one of the walls in our meeting room where we write down every single task that has to get done before each tournament and then cross them off as we go. So one, it's really fun to cross something off once you've finished it, but also you have a visual for what has to get done in the time before your next tournament, which can be really helpful.
That's great. We also have a requirements document that we use too. So it's kind of similar to like writing out the tasks, but we set like requirements that for example, the robot needs to be within an 18-inch cubed area. And if we're not meeting that before the competition, we go through all the requirements and make sure that each one is ticked off before we go to competition. So the next question that we had was, just a moment here, lost my page, so we're gonna head back. Oh, okay. What makes a great judge's presentation? Are there any things that your team does specifically?
I think one of the things that we've noticed over the years is what really makes a good judge's presentation is showing your passion about it, because I think a lot of us here, we really love FTC, and just making sure you show how much you care about that and how much you love and are proud of the things you've done is really important. I think there's also other things like making sure people talk pretty evenly, making sure people know like there's an even distribution of that kind of thing. But I think it really comes down to showing your passion.
I completely agree with that. And I think every team has a different recipe for their judging presentation and what they want to do that really uniquely fits their team's personality and culture. And then I think also a lot of things that make a judging presentation strong are kind of intuitive, like staying engaged throughout the presentation and things like that. A couple of things that I usually tell teams though are, one, try not to be scripted, because it just makes it more natural as you're talking with the judges. And it also shows that you actually understand what you're talking about, which is really valuable in the presentation. And then another thing that I suggest teams do is to work in at least a couple of stories throughout their presentation. So stories about iterations of a robot mechanism or an outreach event that you did, so that there's more of a personal touch and the judges are able to directly link that thing that you did to your team, and it helps it stick better in their memory as well.
I definitely agree with that. Our coach and mentor always tells us that these messages always come across better when they come from the heart, and they should come from the heart because everyone is so passionate about this. It just helps that if you know your script well, it makes it sound a little bit more passionate and give it a little bit more oomph. Something that my team also does is that we kind of have like a choreography, so everyone knows what's happening at every single moment, and like we know when to nod, and we know everyone else's script, so that if someone is sick or is unable to attend, we can jump in and help them during the presentation.
Yeah, I definitely think all of those are important. And as well, I think making sure that your script or just your judging presentation really flows, so that each section that you're talking about leads into another, like a good transitions, because it sort of takes the judges out of the moment. If you're like, oh, well, that's the end of our robot section, now let's talk about our outreach. It sort of takes you out of that moment and hearing about really the story and the journey of your team this past season, which is really what the judging presentation is about.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, another thing I think I've noticed is it's really important to have your presentation fit towards the goals of your team. Like if you really want to win robot awards and you don't really care so much about the outreach awards, focus on that. And if it's the other way around, then focus on your outreach. And if you can go somewhere in between, but make sure it reflects your team and it reflects your goals as well, which is important.
That's exactly true. There are also like descriptions of awards on firstinspires.org. So if you're like looking to win a specific award, you can go out there and make sure that your presentation tailors to the things that the judges are looking for too. So that's like a good way to make sure that you're presentation kind of tailors to what the judges want to hear. And also, like, another way of thinking about it is like getting the judges to come back to your pit and ask more questions. So like, don't tell them like everything about their team, but make sure that they want to keep coming back and asking questions too. All right, the last written question that we have is, how important is an engineering notebook, and how does your team approach the end? Do you have like typed one, or do you handwrite it?
The engineering notebook is indescribably important. If you're going for awards, it's required for, at this point, every single one, and it's also a really, really useful tool. So my team used to kind of view it as the notebook is something that we have to do if we want to be eligible for awards, but it actually is really valuable on its own. We've even, my team did First Global, and at the time a notebook wasn't required there, but we still kept one because it's such a valuable resource to have throughout the season. So it's indescribably important. And my team does a handwritten one. We always have, and it's just something that we really like to have a physical copy of what we're working on.
Yeah, I agree with that. My team has a handwritten one too, and we've done typed ones in the past, and we just find that they're so hard to like go back and refer to, especially since if you have like a really long, like 20-page document, it takes so long to load, and you spend more time formatting than you do actually writing in it, which is a problem in and of itself.
Yeah, I definitely think, like Katie was talking about, making sure your notebook is actually a resource for your team is super critical. And we didn't find out about that until a few years into FTC and learn how to do that. But it can be super helpful to have, like, for example, we have a section where we put like the documentation for our sensors and be able to just like look that up when you need to, instead of searching on the internet, like hunting down the name of the sensor. And then our team actually does all of our notebook stuff typed. It's just what's worked out for our team. But we do sketches and stuff, and we tape that into our notebook. So it's kind of a mix a little bit, but most of the writing is all typed because that's just what's worked like collaboration wise for our team.
Do you guys use Google Docs or Word? Sorry, Madeline.
Yeah, that's fine.
We do kind of a combination. We do most of our like non-technical stuff in Word, but right now we're doing our technical stuff in Docs still. That might change in the future. We'll see.
So I do, my team does our engineering notebook in type format. We used to do it in writing format, and slowly each year got more and more types. And last year for a little bit, we tried to go back to writing, actually partly inspired by Schrodinger's hat, because one of our team members worked with Schrodinger's hat during First Global, and she's like, I'm so inspired by the written notebook, we have to go back to it. And it turned out that there was a reason why we had switched the type notebook. It just seemed to work better for our team. So we ended up retyping all of the first few meetings that we had done written. But I definitely think that there's a benefit to both. And I totally agree with having the engineering notebook as a resource. I know this year, because my team was around during like Block Party and Cascade Effect and Rescue, when they were using these similar minerals, I've literally just gone back, like reading each entry in the notebook, like learning about like how they made the certain part that I've seen in pictures of the older robots in years that I wasn't on the team. And it's just really so insightful and helpful.
I definitely agree with you. That's well said. We also have a couple questions from the chat. One is from FTC Live, Ethan. He asks, how do you recommend females on co-ed teams who feel pushed out of leadership roles on teams to succeed?
I think it really depends on the situation. I think that question could reflect a lot of different actual real life situations. My first knee-jerk answer would be talk to your coaches about it. Make sure that they're aware of what's going on and able to help kind of maintain that organization and help you stay involved with the roles that you are fulfilling. I would also say sit down, have a talk with your team, make sure they really understand, the different roles that are supposed to be being fulfilled, and make sure that they are aware of maybe any even unintentional sexism that may be playing a role there, and try to eliminate that if that is a factor as well.
That's great. I also think that it would be nice for you to find your niche and stick with it. Just know that your voice and your opinion has just as much value as everyone else's, so don't be afraid to like jump in and like tell people your opinion or share your ideas in any way.
Yeah, this doesn't go so much for people in those positions who like feel pushed out of leadership roles, but this is just for other people in general, is make sure you're like kind of keeping that in mind and like looking for that kind of thing to happen to support people who might be in that kind of position and make sure they have a voice in those situations. It can be really, really powerful for someone to like support another person and say like, hey, let's listen to them and see what they can do on the team, things like that.
Yeah. I definitely really like collaborating with everybody else on the team, and then more importantly, going to people of authority on the team when there's an ongoing issue, because your coaches and your mentors are there to really help you and make sure that your first experience is positive. So make sure that if there's like an ongoing issue, or if there's a situation where you feel that you were more qualified for a certain leadership position, but somebody else got it on the team, possibly because they had, you know, maybe they were a boy, or even for another reason. If you're a boy in a team, you feel like somebody else got a position that you feel that you were deserving of, it's always good to talk to the mentors and to talk to the coaches, because they'll probably explain like, this is our reasoning behind it. Or maybe they'll even see, oh, I didn't know that you sort of had this feelings, and maybe they'll even make it a leadership role that both of you can fill.
Great. That's an awesome statement. So we also have a question from Bry4962, and he or she asks, do you prefer qualifiers or leagues? I guess I can start out with this one. Our team has done both qualifiers and leagues. We did leagues for the first time last year, and we kind of had mixed experiences with it, because we liked having to iterate quickly and get all of like our bad designs out of the way. It was nice for us to be able to fail fast and not have it reflected on us immediately. Whereas in like a qualifier, you kind of get one shot to test your robot, and after that, you move on to state or you don't. So we liked leagues for that reason, but we like qualifiers because you get a little bit more time to prepare and see what other people do as well.
My team has only ever done qualifiers. We've never been in a region with leagues, but I really, really like qualifiers. I think that it can be a bummer to not have as much chance to iterate your robot, and it's also a bummer to get less drive practice. But I think that having that full tournament experience where you go through all of judging, all of the matches, all of finals, everything, and it is kind of the exact same experience as state, just scaled down, is really, really valuable. Something that my team's been able to do since we moved from Alaska to Virginia last season is compete in more than one qualifier each season, which I think has probably been a really good balance in between one single qualifier and tons of league meets, because it gives us a little bit more of a chance to work on the robot, to get drive practice, all of that, but it's still allowing us to have that standard tournament experience at each tournament.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think if leagues had a little bit more emphasis on like practicing judging presentations, they'd be a little bit more helpful. So then you're prepared once you actually get to the league as well.
What's cool about New Jersey is that we actually have like a sort of combination between leagues and qualifiers. So you'll have like 2 or 3 meets in between your qualifier. So if you don't qualify during that qualifier, you have a chance to go to the league championship and then use your scores from those meets as part of the way for you to qualify, which I think is cool because it gets us to sort of practice our robot driving and to see what other teams are doing. Again, I would like to see a little more judging practice, but there usually is one meet that if teams want to, there's an optional judging practice that they can do, and sort of like judges will give them some advice and say like, here's what you're doing well so far. So it's a great way to sort of have like a midpoint in the season before you go to the qualifier.
Yeah, my team, we did qualifiers originally, and we did leagues for the first time with Green Girls last year, and we're doing leagues again this year. I do really like it, especially for newer teams. I think it's really valuable for them to kind of get like a introduction to and like feel a little bit more like a part of the first community because they're seeing certain teams over and over again, get to build relationships with them, which I think is super awesome. And I do think it's a little bit easier to kind of get like gently led into a tournament because you have like several times to practice. And it's okay if your robot totally fails one time, like you have more chances. I think judging practice and inspection are super helpful. Like what our league does is we have a week 0 league qualifier, or league meet, which was just last week for us, which has been super, super helpful because then it allows your robots get inspected. And so they can see like if something isn't following the rules and fix that for the first actual league meet. So teams kind of are more aware of what's going on.
Cool. Okay, so we have one more question from the chat before we wrap things up. It is from Bry4962 again, and he asks, we use Slack and Trello for keeping organized. Has anyone used this before? Well, I'll jump in because our team uses both Slack and Trello this year. We just started using both of them, and Slack is a messaging app. It's kind of similar to Discord where you can have certain channels and like communicate with people based on like the topic so that everyone else doesn't see 40 different messages at the same time, which is nice. And Trello is an agile process software. It's kind of like Kanban where you have a backlog of tasks and then you move over the tasks like to do. And then once you're done with them, you put them in like the done column. So we just started using that this year, and I really like Slack because it makes sure that the team is constantly connected, and it also makes sure that like if you're on programming team, you don't have to hear everything about the lift mechanism if you don't want to. So that's really nice. And Trello is also great because before we would use sticky notes and put them on like poster boards. And oftentimes we'd lose the sticky notes and forget what we were supposed to do. So this was a great software to make sure we kept everything organized and make sure we didn't lose anything. Does anyone else have experience with Slack or Trello?
Yeah, our team used Trello a few years ago. Honestly, for our team, it just didn't work because we never really stayed on top of it. I think that's the main reason. What we use now is we just use Google Keep and make lists of what we have to do and like order them. We do like usually within each category, like this is what needs to happen for build right now. And then we'll order that because it's just simpler for us, which has worked. But I think it's really team specific, like whatever works for you.
Katie or Madeline, have you guys used any type of like organization software like Trello?
My team temporarily tried out Trello this summer during some just like preseason like practice meetings, and just like Rachel, we couldn't really stay on top of it. So for us, we have like usually a little more of a low tech solution. It's a lot of whiteboards or chalkboards to just list down, like our daily agenda of what we need to do, and to sort of list out like what we need to buy, what needs to be done in general before the next competition. So I think it would definitely be helpful to have it all digital, so it would take up less space on the boards, because we are always using them for sketching something out or brainstorming. But it's sometimes just easier for us to just like write something up than have it in like a big software. But I totally agree. It's personalized to each team and everyone finds something different helpful.
Yeah, my team does a similar thing to WAGs. We basically have everything on the whiteboard, which is less high tech, but it's also to us a whole lot more useful because we have this to-do list and this to-order list, et cetera, staring us in the face every single meeting, or for me, every time I walk out to my living room. So it's something that's really right there and easy to keep track of. And then as far as Discord or Slack or anything, my team used Discord briefly last season, but we're so small, we've always been between 2 and 6 members, that it just hasn't really been necessary for us. And we've always wound up just texting instead, which works great for us.
I agree with you guys. It definitely depends on the team, like which solution you use, but something that might help a team get into Trello is using stand-ups as well. So that at the beginning of every single meeting we come and we bring Trello out and we're like, what are we doing today? What have we accomplished? And then we like have a set time when we have to move these things over too. So that helps a lot keeping on task.
That's cool. It sounds like a useful piece of software. I'd never heard of it before, but I'm kind of interested in it now.
Thank you to all of our co-executive producers, keeping fun loud, live, and independent. Pledge your support at patreon.com/first updates now.